Good afternoon and welcome to EntrepreNerds Between the Sheets. My name is Ariana Friedlander and I am here today with EntrepreNerd, innovator, and entrepreneur extraordinaire Karina Mullen with ConverSketch. She's a very talented entrepreneur and artist that I've had the pleasure of working with for my own business and have also worked with through EntrepreNerds. And I'm so excited to have you here today, Karina. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Ariana. This is a real treat and a new thing for me, so I'm looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, likewise. And I was wondering if you could take a minute to tell everyone a little bit about yourself, what your business is, and just a little bit of history so we can get to know you.
Absolutely. So my background is very minimally business related. So being an entrepreneur has been a big leap into a bunch of unknowns, but being with EntrepreNerds and masterminds has definitely helped guide me. I would consider myself a visual facilitator and graphic recorder, which essentially means that I get to synthesize information using images and text in your meetings, or if you've got a message to share. So a lot of times, to help people understand what it is exactly I do, I ask, have you ever seen those whiteboard videos, like the RSA videos, where the hand's moving really fast and then there's a voiceover? So I do videos like that, but I also do live, essentially, capture of your meetings with pictures and words on a big piece of paper so everyone can see systems and how ideas are interacting and kind of move toward a clear vision or strategy, or just kind of have a beautiful memory of the meeting.
Fantastic. And I've seen you work in action live. In fact, I think the first time I saw you work was at TEDxCSU a few years ago. And it was really powerful to watch you work and also to see how you captured these ideas and these sometimes really complicated concepts that the speakers were going over, and you just simplified them and made them very beautiful as well. So I think that it's a really extraordinary talent that I know I wish I had, but I'm grateful that someone like you is out there that can fill in that skill set for someone like me. Can you tell us, what is it like to be a graphic recorder?
Well, thank you, first of all, for those kind words. It's really, it's a challenge because usually I come into a group. Sometimes I have repeat clients, but even then, the content is never the same twice in the work that I've done. And so I'll come into a group and maybe, I'll be doing my research about the group and perhaps have some sort of idea of what's going to be talked about. But for example, in the TEDx events, I have no idea what any of the speakers are going to be talking about. And so just kind of being there, listening intently, and just kind of trusting myself to capture what's really needed. And sometimes I go back and ask the speaker what they said, or if I missed something. But it's really about just kind of being there in the moment and letting go of perfectionism. I tend to try to do the best thing I can, but oftentimes it ends up differently than I anticipated. So it's a pretty cool thing because I am in the moment. I get to be artistic and creative. I know I'm helping people out with understanding things, complex topics, and it's a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, I love what you say about letting go of that perfection piece, because I feel like that is so important and such a challenge sometimes when you are an entrepreneur and when you are committed to a craft that you want it to be just a certain way. And how do you balance that, delivering something that's quality and that's going to really align with the kind of way you want to represent your work, but also not be too fixated on this extreme that's not realistic as well. So
Exactly.
I appreciate what you said there. And I'm curious, this is a very intriguing field. It seems like it's an emerging field, that there aren't a lot of graphic recorders out there at this time, and that I understand that part of the challenge you face is building awareness about the work that you do. And so I'm curious, what has inspired you to go down this path when it's just an emerging area to work in?
Yeah, it's just kind of been a series of green lights, and I felt just kind of divinely guided as to this is what I need to be doing right now. And it started off during my master's research in climate change communication. And for our first workshop, we brought in a pilot facilitator, and they brought a graphic recorder with them. And I just saw it and fell in love because I had previously dropped an art major because I didn't think I could make it as an artist, and but I still really enjoyed doing art as a hobby. So seeing that being put to use in a way that was really engaging and helping people stay on track with what was being talked about, which was really complex climate change science and communication theory, was just absolutely fascinating. So fortunately, I had a really supportive advisor who let me just keep practicing, and it just kind of one thing led to another, and I had the opportunity to do some graphic recording for the National Park Service for a meeting they had, and I just kind of took the leap and said, I really love this. It seems like something that people engage with really positively every time that I'm doing this or I've seen it done. So I just kind of decided to start a business without knowing anything about business, really. And, through my graduate career, just kind of started building my network and getting to places like TEDxCSU where there was a big audience and I could just kind of show people, because if you say, oh, I'm a graphic recorder, most people have no idea what that means. So the idea is to get out there and be seen and share the empowering way that graphic recording can help people understand each other.
Yeah, that's fantastic. A great story, and wonderful that to hear how full circle things have come for you, that we do feel sometimes that our passions don't align with a career path or one that could be lucrative or realistic, and so that you had this commitment already to art and that you were able to marry that with another passion in communication and environmental studies, I think is just fantastic.
Yeah, now
what's that?
And now it's just expanded beyond, initially it was a lot of science workshops and things like that, and now, the gambit of clients has really expanded. So
fantastic. And you've been a part of EntrepreNerds now for over a year. You mentioned before that you didn't feel like an entrepreneur, but you wanted to kind of take this leap of faith into starting your own business. And I'm curious if you could tell us, what does being an entrepreneur mean to you? How has that affected your journey as an entrepreneur, being a part of this community?
Yeah, well, you really hit the nail on the head right there with what you said at the end, that it's really a community and a learning community that I think you've set up, Ariana, with EntrepreNerds. So I feel like, that meeting you when we did was really, one of those green lights that just came together of an avenue that was really fun and engaging to learn about business. And I'm not the kind of person who wants to read business books all the time, and so having a meeting coming up, like an EntrepreNerds meeting coming up, and having some book suggestions even was super helpful for me to get different entrepreneurs and business and startup perspectives. And then also being part of the masterminds group, again, built a community of learning and kind of gave me the opportunity to be surrounded by like-minded people, to hear what they were going through, to share what I was going through, and get really awesome advice from people who'd been, entrepreneurs for 50 years and were starting a new venture, or just other people who had just done the same kind of thing that I was wondering about. So being part of a learning community is what it means to me.
Nice. And like you said, we don't always feel motivated or have the desire to read some of the business books that are out there that we know would make a difference if we would just sit through. And so to have that kind of support and accountability to put yourself out there and actually read them, I know has been helpful for me too. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's been valuable for you. And I had the pleasure over a year ago of working with you to actually help solidify part of the framework of EntrepreNerds. So realizing early on in the experience that what made the EntrepreNerds program unique was the style of facilitation that allowed the community to come together and what I've often called this collective wisdom share.
Yes.
And as part of that, capturing that facilitation style was one of the things I realized I needed to do in order to replicate myself in the program, which I've since been able to do, which is so exciting. And so a year ago, Karina helped me develop a participatory facilitation, which I'm excited to show everyone the original of. We together designed this model, and it's been so much fun working with Karina developing that. I just would love to hear kind of your perspective. It sounds like when you're doing graphic recording, it's a little bit different, that you are, kind of in the moment, listening, you're not really sure what's going to happen, but developing a model or a framework like this takes a little bit more research on the back end, I can imagine. So can you tell me a little bit about the difference you experience as a graphic recorder when you're doing something live versus working on a model like this?
Absolutely, yeah. So being a live graphic recorder or facilitator, you really need to be present, one of the principles that you've got up there, and be on your toes and able to adapt, which is similar to working with someone to create sort of a model or more of a studio piece like we did. But the process of creating this was much more iterative. It was, okay, let's hear all of the things that are bouncing around in your brain, Ariana, and how can I just start to initially capture them in a very messy way, but in a way that they are there in front of us for us to see, and we can see what you keep coming back to, what the key ideas are, and then what's more peripheral. And so it starts off as something that's typically, really messy, all over the place. I tend to call them spaghetti bowls because there's lines going everywhere and words all over the place. But then, little by little, I'll do a more refined version and then talk with you, and you'll say, oh, I love that, or can we incorporate this, or that not so much, and then I'll do another version, and then we finally came up with this, which I really like still, and have something that you can move forward with. So it's actually a lot more about the vulnerability and active listening with the studio pieces and like the model, because I have to let go of my ego and say, okay, well, what I did, you didn't like that as much, so how can we make it really yours? So
So you're getting a little bit more feedback, it sounds like.
Absolutely, which for me can be challenging, but in the long run is really valuable.
Yeah, and I understand, and it's so much nicer actually to get feedback when you are developing your business and you're trying to understand what do people actually like or want or value, and it can be really, really hard to take. And how have you developed some kind of distance between you mentioned letting go of your ego and your work, and I imagine as an artist especially, that's really hard because you're putting your heart and soul into your art, and it feels so personal.
Yeah.
What has it been like disconnecting your ego in these kinds of efforts?
An attempt to disconnect. Just kind of going into live work with a knowing that it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. It is perfect in its imperfection, and I think that's part of what makes graphic recording engaging for folks, is that it's not perfectly digital, it's not clip art, it's not like that. They can kind of make a connection to the human aspect of it. And then for the iterative studio work where I'm working with a client, like a video or something like that, just getting something out there that's a straw dog and telling my clients and telling myself, this is just the initial thing no one's attached to. and this is what we can really move forward from. So that's been something that I've kind of a script that I have to tell myself in my head of like, okay, if this doesn't work out, then that's okay, but at least they have something to react to. At least we'll be able to move forward, and we'll both hopefully be happy with the end product.
Right. Yeah. It's like you say. It's how you talk with yourself. It's remembering that it's iterative, and then it is a matter of connecting with the human element.
Yes.
It sounds like those were kind of the 3 practices that allow you to engage with your art and your clients and let go of any taking things too personal.
Absolutely. And knowing, it's not everyone's style, and that's okay, but I try to make it as close to those people's style that I'm working with as possible.
Yeah. And so to bring it back, it is definitely my style. I'm such a huge fan of the work that you do, and really do love the model that you developed. For me, it's still relevant. It's becoming even more present in our immediate community, and it seems like in other communities as well. And what was really powerful working with you was taking the model and kind of adapting it into a tool. Yeah. And so it's been fun to kind of reminisce on, oh my gosh, this is, the year anniversary of developing this model together, and it felt very co-creational. What was that?
I can't believe it's been a year.
I know, time flies, right? And so looking back, though, I've been looking at the other version that's been the tool for so long, and I'll show that one to everyone too, that I forgot kind of, how much I love the original as well. But it is important to point out that the tool does have in the center a purpose. And so I was curious, as you were talking about letting go of ego, if that ever comes into play, of that I'm serving in this greater purpose. Because I know for me, when letting go of taking things personally, it helps to remember that it's not about me, it's about this greater purpose that I'm serving. And then also identifying the outcomes, and those being an important piece of, preparing for a meeting. And for me, this has been really powerful to allow me as a facilitator. I think that's one of the things that we share in common, is both being facilitators, to be able to make snap judgments when I'm in the moment of, does this conversation align with our purpose and our intended outcomes or not? And if it does, to allow it to continue and evolve, because we don't always know where powerful conversations are going to go, and especially when they're co-creational and when we're working together in this capacity of learning, of co-learning and co-creating. And so to be able to quickly reference, yes, this is an alignment, yes, we need to just kind of sit back and let things progress, or no, this is not part of what we're here for, we need to rein it back in and recenter everybody on these intended outcomes that we're working on and this intended purpose that brings us here today. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And then you talked about the practices, and I was curious to hear a little bit more about, you mentioned the presence being really important in your work. And I see that one being difficult for a lot of people in conversations, especially, we're in a hyper-connected world right now. I heard my phone earlier go off, and it's like, takes a conscious effort to ignore it and not look at it.
Right.
There's so much going on. So how do you practice being present when you are live recording or working with a client? What are some tips you can give? What's that look like?
Yeah, I think the fact that graphic recording forces me to be present is part of the reason that I'm addicted to it, because we are in such a hyper-connected world. And so I think a lot of the aspects of the model are dead on. Listening, active listening, just kind of waiting and not immediately trying to formulate a response. When I'm hearing someone speaking, it's not like, okay, how am I going to respond to that? It's, okay, let me listen and see where this goes and how it evolves and how I might be able to capture it. So I'd say just, patience, listening, and just it's such, when you're taking notes intently, whether they're visual notes or more linear notes, you just really do need to be in the moment and be listening. But it's okay if you drift off sometimes. I do that if it's a long day, and then you can just kind of talk to the person and be able to fill the blank in. But it's just kind of I guess the nature of the work is you're just there listening and illustrating and letting the information flow from your head to your hand and the marker on the page. So
it sounds like almost doodling and note-taking are two actions that somebody in a meeting could do to improve their presence.
Totally. There's so much research coming out right now, which is really cool, about how doodling or making pictures while you're listening to something or learning actually does help your brain process, even if it's a non-related illustration. Just kind of the physical act of drawing and moving helps your brain process and can help you remember things more, especially if it is an image that's related to what's being talked about. So things like dual coding theory that combines words and text, and helping you, be able to remember more. Things like engaging with different senses like auditory and visual and kinesthetic and emotional connection to the work that helps people remember things better. So yeah, there's a lot of really fascinating research coming out about that.
Yeah, and I feel like we keep talking around this word processing.
Yeah.
Right? We're processing language, or we're processing what people are saying, and how is kind of being in this process when you are in conversations as a graphic facilitator, or even just as somebody that's trying to be in process listening and note-taking and being present, how is that different than the way most of our conversations today happen from what you see?
Well, like you said, it's present, and when I send a text message, it's just kind of right there. Let me write this out, and I'll send it out, and hopefully I'll hear back. But when you're seeing your thoughts as a participant of a meeting where there's graphic recording happening, if you are seeing how your thoughts are put up, validated, and then how other people react to them, or their ideas build on or are related to that really just kind of helps form that community within the group that's working through something. If it's more of a strategic plan or visioning kind of exercise where we're doing a process rather than just capture of a keynote, which is more of a one-way information stream. But when it's kind of back and forth where I'm asking clarification questions and capturing things, I think it just really helps people feel more connected with the outcome, a lot more buy-in to whatever conclusions are made, and it's just a really neat way for people to engage with each other, and again, not be digitally connected, which we are so inundated by, at least in the U.S., on a regular basis. So I think it's just kind of a different, fun, fresh way to engage with people.
Yeah, I think so for sure too, and I really like what you said about it not being kind of this one-way street where you're capturing, the key notes, but instead you're kind of playing with people's reactions and understanding other people's perceptions, both of what you're conveying or trying to convey and what they want to convey. And it's that seeking to understand and to place within your own current reality and maybe shift that as well, then instead of just getting a point across, which I think sometimes is what we think it means to be in conversation, is to just make your point.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, and a lot of the aspects of the participatory facilitation model just really resonate with me, and with the way that graphic recording unfolds and visual facilitation unfolds. So it's really fantastic to see everything so concisely laid out and how it's connected.
Thanks. Yeah, it was interesting hearing a speaker at a conference I was at last September talking about how control is for beginners. and and a big part of the model of participatory facilitation really grasping on that notion as well, that when you are in conversation, an authentic, vulnerable, genuine conversation, that you can't control the outcomes, you can't control the direction. If you truly do want to hear other people's beliefs, their perceptions, and make sure that they are processing and understanding things in a way that's constructive. It might not be the way you want them to, but
right. Yeah. Rarely is it the way you think you want it to be.
Right. And so I feel like this has been one of the things that you talked about earlier was connecting with your intuition.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you could talk about what role listening to your intuition has played in running your business. You've mentioned it as a graphic recorder, but what is an entrepreneur? How has it come into play as an entrepreneur?
That's a really great question, and one that's really resonating with me right now. You know, I feel like the more that I listen to my intuition, the better things go, even if it doesn't seem like it makes sense right at the moment. So last summer I was finishing up my master's degree, and I really was like, okay, I'm ready to launch into ConverSketch, and then I was offered mostly like an 80% full-time position at CSU, and the job was something that wasn't exactly what I really wanted to be doing, but it was a set job. It was a regular salary and benefits, and it was easy to want that. And so even though it seemed like an obvious decision to go ahead and accept that job, there was something in my heart saying, maybe this isn't the right path for you. You should probably do ConverSketch. You should do your business. And I didn't listen to that. I didn't at all. And so I ended up accepting this position, which was a 10-month position working at the university, and it was a good learning experience, and I'm very appreciative to have had that opportunity. But as of this Friday, I'm now fully self-employed and launching ConverSketch, and it just feels so light and perfect and like what I'm supposed to be doing. So I'm really glad that I can finally be listening and following through on what my intuition has been telling me.
Yeah, I think we all get stuck in the shoulds.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I should take this job. It's the safety net. Or
right.
I should invest in this way in my business. Everyone's doing social media. Or I should get a website. There are so many things that we feel like are kind of the right way to do business, or the right decision, or the right way to live life, or the right way to be a professional. And they don't always work in our best interest.
Right. Yeah, there's something to be said for learning from the past and learning from others and not reinventing the wheel, but also just like, yeah, every time I really listen to my intuition, whether it's in an entrepreneurial endeavor or on a hike, it just really seems to lead me in the right direction, which is magnificent and magical, and I'm so happy that it's there.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad that you appreciate it. I do too, and sometimes I even feel like I'm channeling things, or I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but like I'm gonna go with it because that feels very inspired right now.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Like, you've been on this journey for a little while. I know that ConverSketch became kind of the formal brand you are working under a little over a year ago, but that you'd been kind of pursuing this path for longer than that. And so how has your perception of being an entrepreneur changed over the course of this journey?
Kind of what you said before of all the shoulds and what you think you need to be doing based on what everyone says. I just feel that doing my best and being myself, and especially with networking. I used to hate that word and dread a networking event, but really what I've realized is everybody is someone who might have something to offer you, or you might be able to help. And so even if I'm out, at a dinner party, or in the park with somebody, just talking, and all of a sudden one thing leads to another and people get excited. And so I think the biggest perception that I've had that's changed is networking and what that actually means. And it's really just human beings connecting with other human beings and trying to help each other. That's, I think, the most successful networking scheme. Not scheme, it's not a scheme. Networking way of being that I've kind of thought through trial and error. And of course that seems, of course, obvious, but it wasn't at first. It's one of those things I had to just learn for myself.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of preconceived notions of what it means to network or be in sales or be in business, and they're not all positive, especially if you come from a background that is more purpose-driven, where you do have a level of compassion and concern for other people, and you don't want to just make a sale to make some money, or you don't want to be the pushy salesperson or the pushy networker. We've all gone to networking events where there's that person that's working the room and frantically shoving their business card in like everyone's faces, and so we sometimes see more quickly what we don't want to be, and we forget that there's another way to define what that could look like that's more in line with who we are and the way we want to conduct our business. So I think that's really cool that you've kind of transformed through that initial setback of networking.
Right. I think even whoa business in my experience was kind of like a whoa, what is this new black box? But really it's just about being yourself and being genuine. So
yeah. And I like what you said about being your best too.
Yeah.
So that really does make a difference, because our best is but the best we can do, and it's different from day to day even.
Exactly.
And so, but I know you've become exposed to some more business books. It's not your favorite thing to read, but I've heard that you really enjoy accessing some of those resources. And so what is the name of an author or a book that has been influential in shaping your journey as an entrepreneur?
Well, I have it here. This book is by a colleague, Christine Chopyak. It's called Picturing Your Business Strategy.
Cool.
And it is a really fantastic intro to how strategic illustration or graphic recording can really help in a lot of situations in all sorts of levels of business, from small to huge, and really expose systems and things like that people might be working through. So I really like this book, particularly because it helps promote visual thinking and help people open that door, even if you think you can't draw. Really simple images and words together can make a world of difference. So that's a wonderful, wonderful book.
Yes, and you have even made me feel a little less self-conscious about my drawing skills, so that I've now sketched things out a little bit more than I used to, and and I might not always feel that great about how it looks, but it's amazing how even just like a crude drawing, when I'm working with clients and coaching sessions especially, and we're getting to that point where it's like we need to visualize what you're talking about. Just a simple crude drawing can make such a huge difference for them, and I don't have anywhere near your talent, and it just makes things click.
Yeah, well, fortunately you don't need to be, Da Vinci or anything like that. Even if it's just a circle with an arrow and a label, that could make the world of difference to somebody, like you said. So I think it's, for all of you who may be watching this at some point, just go ahead and give it a try. Don't be afraid of doing something to help understand it better.
And your best is not the same as Karina's best.
Or Da Vinci's best.
Or Da Vinci's, right? So, what what is next for you? You mentioned that you moved on from your position at CSU. You are now full time into ConverSketch. What is next on this journey, and how will EntrepreNerds play a role? I know that you love that community, so tell us a little bit about where you're going and how you want to be a part of that.
Yeah, part of it I don't know. Part of it I'm just kind of letting unfold, but just really trying to get back out fully into the world of people who this might be helpful for, getting my work out there. Most of the work that I've got lined up is on the Front Range, so doing some facilitation and graphic recording around Fort Collins, Denver, Boulder, and I'd really, like to expand my facilitation experience and expertise. So incorporating the visuals and the facilitation and the guiding of the conversation. And with EntrepreNerds, I'm just really looking forward to getting back into that community, learning some of the books. Like, I really want to learn, read more Seth Godin, of course, and just kind of giving myself time to learn more and be a lifelong learner. So.
Nice. And I love how you're able to admit that you don't know exactly how it will unfold. I think so often we get, we get this false sense of hope that we know exactly how it's all going to go and we have it all planned out, and then reality doesn't happen the way we plan. And we really have to be kind of open and nimble with that. So
yeah, if there's one thing I've learned, that's what I need to do, is just be open and adaptive.
Yeah, and I commend you with that, sharing that with us, because I think that will resonate with so many other people that think they need to have it all figured out before they can take this next step. And it's actually in taking the steps that you figure it out.
Exactly.
So, great. Well, thank you so much, Karina. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our viewers, with the EntrepreNerds community, before we sign off for the day?
I'd just really like to thank you for all of your really thoughtful questions and for listening authentically with me, and I hope that this is helpful to someone out there. It was actually really great for me to process, so get out there and do some drawing, people.
Thanks. Yeah, and thank you so much, Karina, for joining us and sharing a little bit about your journey, both as an entrepreneur and an EntrepreNerd, and telling us a little bit about your work as a graphic recorder, too, because I do think that it is such a powerful skill and really service to be able to offer businesses. And so I'm excited to be able to share a little bit more with other folks about that. For those of you that are viewing this, if you do want to get more involved with the EntrepreNerds community, you can go onto our website, EntrepreNerds.biz. It's also the URL in my lower third there, and you can sign up to receive email updates and notices about some of the things we have going on. We are doing more virtual book discussions, virtual interviews, and also have programs to support you starting a book club or mastermind group in your local community. So visit EntrepreNerds.biz for more information. And thank you so much, Karina, for taking time out of your afternoon to be here with us today and share your journey and help to inspire more lifelong learning in other entrepreneurs that are also on this path to creating their unique vision for success. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ariana.
My pleasure. Till next time, folks.
Bye.